Ahoy! I'm a little early, so I'm just kind of chilling for a second. Like I was saying, I was all right, man. I'm gonna take a moment. I'm gonna kind of slow down my day. Alrighty. Let's see. I'm gonna double check that we have. Communication to the mothership here. Alrighty. There we go. We officially have communication with the mothership. There we go. Shout out to Chad. Shout out to Friday Morning Nameless for a little bit of branding there. A little bit of branding. Man, I thought I had this chat window figured out, and I simply don't. It's such a bummer. I can only see. So, all right, I'm gonna do this other thing. Okay, I can see that somebody sent chat. Okay, Cassandra, now I can see you. Favorite voice, thank you. Yes, it's the what do they call this? It's the vocal fry. Yeah, I apologize for the sound of my voice. So yeah, it's a bummer. The lowest chat is blocked by essentially a window that I have on OBS, and no matter what I do, I can't. So that's why I'm typing to basically bump up the chat. Anyway, I will figure that out as we go. You know what? I guess what I'll do, and I apologize. I thought I had it figured out. How's everybody doing? Are we hanging in there? How are we? There we go. Now I can see the whole chat, but I can't actually see if I'm live. So that's the trade-off. I can see chat. And I guess if the chat is moving, then I know that I'm live. So there we go. All right, Cassandra, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for the encouragement there. Yeah, again, shout out to Friday Morning Nameless. Chad hit me up with some branding. Chad, I hope you don't mind. I shared that. I assumed that was okay. We didn't really talk about it, but I appreciated it. Of course, now I'm not using it properly because I'm not playing the branding while I catch my breath. All right. Lots going on kind of politically, and I guess maybe I'll just start with kind of Miss McGillicuddy. How you been? If you guys have questions for me, I've kind of got like a very loose outline for tonight. I don't really have like a lot. Like, I'm sure stuff will pop into my head, but had an awesome podcast that dropped on Monday with Ben Garrett from Haunted Cosmos. Really appreciated that. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but usually if I'm creating a video, I've had to do a lot of editing to sort of clip things and make decisions about what's going to fit and what's not going to be utilized. And then in a live stream, what I can do is I can kind of pick up the stuff that didn't get utilized. But in the case of just a conversation, like I had with Ben, I just gave the conversation. I just put the conversation out there. He's a big Lord of the Rings fan, so there's part of it that I was really surprised that we never got a chance to actually talk about Lord of the Rings. And also, if you did catch the branding there at the beginning, it did remind me, if you can hear my air conditioner in the back, please let me know. If it's too loud, I can always turn it off, but it's still hot. It is still hot. So I'm not yet free of the air conditioner just yet. So Thanks for tolerating that. Yeah, again, if you haven't checked out Haunted Cosmos, awesome podcast. All right, really appreciated Ben showing up. I can send the link for their. Well, I'll just send a link for their website. And they're kind of, they're an interesting group. I don't know much about their church or anything like that. I just know their podcast, and I know it is fun. So yeah, can't wait till fall. Some stuff has already kind of started turning a little fall-ish around here, but I wonder if it's just so hot and so dry that things are just giving up. It's just like I'm ready to kind of give up on the heat and stuff. It's just we had a week of just beautiful temperatures, still no rain, but really beautiful temperatures, and then it's back to heat and nastiness. But all right, we don't want to fail the Grim Grizz test, so I'm going to try to deliver here on the title and the thumbnail. I did actually change the title slightly. Will the Leviathan emerge? Unity versus uniformity in politics and religion. See, Grim Grizz, it's easy to deliver on the title and the thumbnail if you just say it right there at the beginning. I guess that's not delivering. Speaking it out loud isn't really delivering it, but maybe in the vein of that, let's go back, because there's a lot going on politically, right? And this is a theology channel. Right? I'm really my focus is more theology, and I like to point out theology that I find in strange places. And so some of what I'm pointing out, it's not my theology. It's just like, I've got a clip from RFK here that we'll talk about in a little bit, and I don't agree wholeheartly with what he's saying. I can kind of source the meat from it and spit out the bones, so to speak. But you just find it popping up in all these strange places. And part of the reason politics and theology blend is politics is trying to answer the question, how do we as people organize in a community? How do we do this? Well, if depending on your theology, it's going to influence how you answer that political question. How do people exist in community? And so you can think of Hobbes and the Leviathan. You can think of these sort of social contract ideas, and you'll have to bear with me because I read through the social contract stuff like 10 years ago, and I don't think a lot of it stuck with me, but I thought that this little clip from Vivek Ramaswamy was interesting because he sort of blends the biblical idea of the beast with the Leviathan. Of course, Leviathan is coming from the Bible, but I think in his mind he's thinking more of like a Hobbesian Leviathan. And so I don't know, like I thought that was an interesting place to start, of just kind of how is our theology framing this political cycle, this political season, maybe? I don't know. So listen to Vivek here.
It's the nature of the beast itself is not comprised of one human being with an intention. The model of there being one puppet master individually pulling the strings, it's the wrong mental model. It is the machine, the Leviathan itself, that goes beyond. This isn't a human that we're up against. It's individual human beings, the actual democratic will of the people, up against a machine, a monster that we've created, that actually has to be shut down in order for us to actually have any chance of winning. It's the nature of the beast itself is not comprised of one human being with an intention. The model of there being one puppet master individual.
Yeah, so that's the idea of like a lot of people going, who's the sort of puppet master, who's really pulling the strings here? And maybe there is kind of a person or a minority that has more power than others, but it really does seem like an organism. It seems like a Leviathan or a beast that is sort of machine-like, beast-like, and of course that draws me to sort of Revelation 12. Just really interesting stuff. And then I guess like his question, Vivek's question is, and this is on my channel, by the way. I guess I can share this with you guys as well. This was something I did. Gosh, I don't even know how long ago that was. the general is among us. Everyone, behave yourselves. The crowns in Revelation are representative of the EU. Well, I am in the book of Revelation right now. I have been studying Revelation. We're going through it in our student ministry, and it's one thing to sort of read Revelation and maybe participate with it in the context of like a Bible study, or even sort of like a Sunday morning sort of preaching. But when students are your audience, that adds a whole nother level to it. And yet my hope, and the thing that I truly believe is true, is that students will pick up on it a lot more than maybe even adults will. They can see the images. It's symbolism. It's apocalyptic. It's all this, and I think they can see it a little bit better. Yes, we. It's the happy hive, man. The crowns in Revelation. I'll have to get to that part and see. Are you the 12 crowns from the 12? And I'm sorry, I have this kind of far over, so I'm like craning to see it. Maybe I'll put my notes over here, because that's a whole nother. I mean, geez, it is just fascinating stuff. So, if hey, also shout out to Grim. If you didn't catch his live stream today, thank you for putting that on YouTube Music. That was a banger. That was Grim Grizz rolling 20s, I think. So, huh. Well, I sent you a DM, Grizz. So maybe we can talk more. Hopefully we can. There was another. The Leviathan Spirit and the Machine Kingdom are here, kicking in, especially in America. Okay, here's a question for you. Because this will come up when we start talking RFK, Trump, Vance, right? Because that kind of is looking like sort of a something of a machine, maybe something of a there's something abnormal going on there. Tulsi Gabbard is thrown into the mix. They're doing something different. Is the American spirit, right? And I use that term somewhat loosely, but sort of like in the sense of there is sort of this spirit in America that says we can have unity and diversity, right? We can maintain those. Now, going back to the social contract theory, it's like, okay, we can have unity and diversity as long as contracts are maintained. Again, don't quote me on this. It's been a long time since I read Hobbes and Locke and all that stuff. But the idea of a social contract. And then you have to go one step further and say, well, who sort of facilitates the social contract? Who keeps you accountable to the contract? And if there is no God, then why would I honor the social contract? I think that was Voltaire who, I think, and I'll get the story wrong, so forgive me, but there was a point at which, he was being waited on at a table or something like that, and they were, starting to philosophize and starting to sort of talk about how they didn't believe in God and stuff like that, and he sort of lowered his voice and he said, we have to sort of keep this idea that there's no God to ourselves, because if the servants hear us talking, they'll slit our throats. And that was, his acknowledgement that we really need God to enforce the social contract. If there is no God, if a society becomes sort of godless, then the social contracts will break down. This idea of unity and diversity, it's not possible. It's not sustainable. I would say, and I come at it from sort of the biblical Christian worldview, which says that the only way to sustain a social contract, and to be faithful to that, would be if there is actually a person who is divine, who is both infinite, high, lifted up, sovereign over all human history, and therefore sovereign over all human interaction. But is also a person, right? And still near enough to us that, well, at least from Scripture, a great high priest who is familiar with our sufferings, right? So he could rightly judge, both because of his infinite wisdom and his sort of personal touch there. And I'm sort of scatterbrained here a little bit, but that actually takes me to, I wrote this down in my notes because Grail Country talked about this. Nice. Love to see it. Welcome. Yeah. Is it Shovas? We interact on Twitter quite a bit. It's good to see you on a live stream, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you. The idea of relational ontology not being possible outside of the person of Christ, right? The relation, the thing itself, the fact that relationships exist, the fact that we're relational, that idea, and I really liked it. I need to go back to that Grail Country live stream. Shout out to Nate. I'd love to talk with him about that more, but that was like 6 months ago. I don't know how long ago that was. But yeah, I think it was Nate who said something to the effect that there is no relational ontology outside of the person of Christ. Something like that, Nate. If I'm misquoting you, I apologize. And so there you go. You sort of have social contracts are not possible. Relational ontology is not possible if there isn't a God man. That would be my sort of Christian, from my Christian worldview there. And so, yeah, so there you go. I don't know, Grizz, if that's delivering on the title and the thumbnail. Let me see if I can find that thumbnail, actually. Yeah, there you go. I should have just gotten, here were some of the, I was using Grok to try to help me with some of my thumbnail stuff. And so this is what he came up with. One of them that he came up with, Grok, the thing, the machine. Speaking of Leviathans and beasts, machines emerging. I think I just said created an image based off of the Leviathan and incorporate themes from the Bible and from Hobbes. And okay, so the machine forming around Trump. Yeah, we could get to that. I appreciated the fact that there was sort of this in my mind, the Leviathan image is this multi-tentacled creature, and that's why it sort of becomes a little bit hard to sort of pin down and maybe comes out of control. And of course there's the sovereign idea in Hobbes. It's like there needs to be this sovereign sort of king, lord, whatever, who is, I think in his mind more humanistic. The characterization of the left as the uniform party. Okay, so here we go. So yeah, you guys are tracking with me. Thank you. Okay. Unity versus uniformity in politics and religion. I touched on this a little bit in the Musk versus Trump, Kamala derangement syndrome video that looked like it was going to get my channel sort of throttled a little bit. It kind of still seems a little throttled, but whatever. I left it up there. I did another one that was kind of political, and the same thing happened when I removed the video. Things changed. Let me just say that. It's on other platforms, but it's not on this one. Okay, so how's Grok trolling me? Let me know. Yeah, he's giving me a false image. I'm sure he is. Sorry, hang in there as I go. A little ADD here. So you have this uniparty, uniform party. If you look at the RNC and the DNC does seem very sort of unified around a central idea. Let me actually used the same. I know that this is sort of annoying, but I want to show. Oh, maybe it wasn't. Was it in a live stream that we did? Oh no, it was here. Oh, come on, didn't I show it? Okay, where you have all the news. Yeah, you have all the newscasters. Wow, that's a fun face. Yo, I just saw it. I promise it exists. Where you have all the news. There. Help me. Further? Okay. Let's just... Oh, there it is. Okay. So the DNC as the... Oh, because the Leviathan literally looks like a troll. I like it. Okay. This always feels weird. There's two me's. One is current me. The other is past me, and it makes me feel weird. But anyway, you get the idea, right? You have all these newscasters, and they're all saying the same thing. Okay, so we got that, right? This is the that's the example. Okay, now I can go back. Let me go back to Vivek. Let me go back to this. Can you guys hear this? This isn't running in the background, is it? No. Okay, I hope it's not. Yeah, I don't see any. Okay, we're good. Oh, I will try not to click on my DMs. We'll get there, fam. Trust me. The DNC seems more unified at this point, right? They are kind of unified around a central message, if you will. They, it doesn't really matter who is up, right? It could be Joe Biden. It could be Kamala. It doesn't really matter for them, because it's just the party. It's the state, right? It's Kamala can deliver the talking points better than Joe Biden. That's really it. I mean, there's more to it. I think that there is. They're sort of replaying kind of the Barack Obama hope and change type of thing, and yet they seem unified. Now they seem unified, but here's my question for you all, and honestly, let me know. Uniformity is not exactly unity, and we pointed this out, I think, in the last live stream we did. In the Tower of Babel, they all use the same words. That's the newscasters, right? Genesis 11:1. They use the same language, and that's pretty common. Everybody kind of focuses on that. But they use the same words. There is a uniformity to this system, this Babel system. And I'm speaking of the sort of ancient Babel system, but we can certainly apply it to our modern world. What's the quote from 1984? Nothing exists except the endless present in which the party is always right. The party, they always have the right words. And so they have a sense of unity, but no diversity. And maybe, again, let me know what you guys think. Like, I always just call that uniformity, right? It's just uniform. It's one organism, maybe different parts, but they're all assuming essentially the same sort of role. I don't know. It seems more uniform and less unity. So thoughts on that as we look at this Trump situation. Now, this was on... No, what's a better way to approach it? Let's stick, even though it's an example with abortion, which is so that's my idea. It seems like there is a political party in America that kind of embodies this uniformity. I don't know how diverse they are. It seems like pretty much there's an ideological party line, an endless, nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. So, yeah, that's interesting because now my mind is triggered on the book of Revelation where, it's past, present, and future is accompanied in the person of Christ. And I might share, I'm prepping a sermon, him who is, who was, and who is to come. So in 1984, he envisions a world where they're deleting the past. So there's just the endless present. And in Revelation, we see that Christ encompasses past, present. He actually brings it all together. But we'll get to that. Anyway, I'm sort of getting distracted. the Republican Party or Trump's party or whatever we want to call this, are they going to be able to bring about a sense of unity and diversity that America has sort of embodied during its time, right? That's the sort of American spirit idea of unity and diversity. So that's the question for this other party, the RNC or Trump or whatever. I'm going to let that question kind of hang for a second because if you guys do have questions for me, maybe bold them or whatever. The all-consuming blob. Where did I hear that? I heard that somewhere else. Yeah, they want the high schoolers wanting to stand out and be edgy. Well, that's it. How do I capture the attention? Okay, we did talk about this in the Kamala egregore kind of video, right? It's the how do I capture the attention? If I don't have any substance, which they seem like they really don't, I capture the attention of voters or a population by just being more and more edgy. So that's a really good point, Ms. McGillicuddy. Yeah, our uniformity is that we're different. You know, I come from kind of a punk rock culture prior to coming into contact with Jesus. Now, I still feel like I sort of have some punk rock, sort of DNA. And one of the things that I always joked about within sort of the punk rock circles is that everybody's trying to be different, just like everybody else. So yeah, uniformity by being different. And that's true, right, Cassandra? They're not really pointing to the thing that unifies them. They're just saying we're not those people. The thing that unifies them is being non-Trump. That's what we are. The thing that unifies us is not Trump. No Trump here. We're different. We're different. We all just need to be unburdened. Yeah, keep Portland weird. Yeah, just the weirdness. And of course, they tried to get ahead of the weirdness thing by then throwing it on J.D. Vance, and then they did a lot of weird things at the DNC. Not that the RNC, they did weird things too. Okay. So, okay, I appreciate the chat. Yeah, thank you guys. You guys are rolling 20s too. It's because we were blessed by the presence of General Griswold Grimm. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. I'd love to talk to Grimm more. So the question of the RNC, I'm saying RNC, the question of Trump's party, the question of Trump, I'm glad you're still here, Grimm. The question of Trump is not, in my mind, a figure who is sort of strong enough to unify this conglomeration that's happening. And I kind of like it. I'm applauding the kind of the conglomeration aspect of it. Maybe even sort of almost Abraham Lincoln-esque of like, what is it? Company of your adversaries, that type of thing. And maybe it's the land of misfit toys. Maybe it's the outcasts, right? Our Robert Kennedy Jr. would be that. He was sort of cast out of the Democratic Party, and here sort of MAGA is sort of ready maybe to embrace him. I don't know. I don't have my thumb on the pulse of MAGA, but certainly seemed like that energized some people for him to show up at the Trump rally, endorse Trump. He had good things to say, but obviously he's a very different personality from Trump. Vance, now, here's my read, and I don't know, again, we're looking at sort of like this sort of the machine and keeping in the back of our mind, the question is, the political question is, how do we come together as a community? And from a theological standpoint, what I'm trying to say is we can only answer that question if we have first answered the question, what is God truly like? Do we have a God who is powerful enough to unify people of various backgrounds and diverse maybe ideologies, even diverse ideas? I do think I see that in the church. Now, obviously, somebody could make the case that the church is not very unified, and I understand that, but I think there is something to that. there's the body of Christ, all different members and yet one body. So, so Trump is, I don't know. I don't have a read on this guy, because after that near miss, in Butler, PA, it was like you saw a flash of a change from him. Sorry if this is annoying to watch this replay. You almost saw a flash of change from him, and I don't know if I still see that in him, that gleam in his eye that he had at the RNC, the sort of smile on his face. His demeanor seemed to change, and we'll see. But it seems like the Vance decision is in some ways an attempt to make sure, like, the normal sort of conservative religious American is still paying attention and wants to vote for this ticket. Vance is a Catholic and what have you. And so Trump can kind of still be a little bit of a renegade, he did come out after PA to say, where did he say it? It was so funny the way he said it. Was it on Tucker? Anyway, he said, "Yeah, I'm a believer, and I'm even more of a believer now. Everybody says I'm more of a believer now." It's like, that's just a weird way of phrasing it, but I guess kind of true. Like, we would think that there's fruit, right? A true believer would have fruit and would be recognized by other people. So there's that. I don't know where Trump is, but you have Kennedy, Vance, Trump. I have rambled on enough, and I asked this question, on the Twitters, and let me know what you guys think about this. Yeah, Vance could be an age gap thing. Yeah, it's true. Trump is kind of he's kind of the stereotypical, old white guy running for president. Again, if we're trying to get people's attention by being weird over here on one side, what's Trump going to do to sort of get maybe younger people? He came out and, said he was for women's reproductive rights. That seems a pretty innocuous statement. But in this clip, he's talking about how Roe v. Wade should be at the state's level. And I compared it with when he was talking about the war in Ukraine, and he just like famously said, "I want everyone to stop dying," which to me seems like how you would address the abortion question, right? Now, this is, of course, we're asking how do you unify this pretty diverse group of people who, on the question of abortion, you've got the sort of religious conservative who's going to say this is murder, like, we can't do this, and I don't know where I won't talk too much about like how I'm feeling about this election personally, but just it's out there. Like, there are going to be some people who will maybe abstain from voting based on this question if neither party can support how they feel. I think the way you answer the question is, what is the unborn? Again, my theology is going to inform how I speak into that issue. And then Vance goes on and says he sort of he sort of agrees with the false premise. Do you guys want to watch this? Yeah, the Musk gear in the machine. Grim has some thoughts about Elon Musk, right? Let's see.
Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying.
Post about women's reproductive rights this morning. Has your stance on abortion changed?
Yeah, no, very good. I'm very strong on women's reproductive rights. The IVF, very strong. I mean, we're leaders in it. And I think people are seeing that, and votes are being taken, and that's what they've wanted for years. For 52 years, they've wanted votes to be taken by the states, and they wanted Roe v. Wade to be brought into the states, and it's really happening.
Post about women's reproductive rights this morning. Has your stance on abortion changed?
It was talked about at the Democratic National Convention. It's being talked about on the campaign trail. Abortion.
Sure.
Democrats made the case this week and beyond this week that Donald Trump, if elected, will impose a federal ban on abortion if he wins. Now, Donald Trump says he won't, but can you commit, Senator, sitting right here with me today, that if you and Donald Trump are elected, that you will not impose a federal ban on abortion?
I can absolutely commit that, Kristen, and Donald Trump has been as clear about that as possible. I think it's important to step back and say, what has Donald Trump actually said on the abortion question, and how is it different from what Kamala Harris and the Democrats have said? Donald Trump wants to end this culture war over this particular topic. If California wants to have a different abortion policy from Ohio, then Ohio has to respect California and California has to respect Ohio. Donald Trump's view is that we want the individual states and their individual cultures and their unique political sensibilities to make these decisions, because we don't want to have a nonstop federal conflict over this issue. The federal government ought to be focused on getting food prices down, getting housing prices down, issues, of course, where Kamala Harris has been a total disaster. So,
yeah, and so here, like, you know, again, I would just stick to the, hey, I want people to stop dying. I want people to stop dying, and I don't think the way we get at this issue is by having the federal government sort of legislate that. But again, now you've got J.D. Vance speaking, you've got Donald Trump speaking, you've got RFK speaking, you've got a whole group of people who have a sort of a wide spectrum of how they're going to answer this, particularly the abortion question. And how do you hold that together? You know, how do you hold that together if you don't have a shared, I would say, belief system or ideology? I mean, certain cultures could come together around shared, shared history, shared culture. Those things are powerful. But yeah, again, outside of the person of Christ, relational ontology doesn't exist. And we'll get to this RFK quote here, maybe move into some Joe Rogan stuff even. But yeah, so very interesting stuff sort of politically. Again, me sort of reflecting on, how do you do this and sort of maintain a sort of a secular society? I wouldn't advocate for, like, you wouldn't I think freedom of religion is key. I think that we need to come to the table together and talk about these ideas. They're deeply meaningful and shape our countries, they shape our society, they shape our families. And we need to have open discourse about those. I need to learn from people who have different beliefs than I have. And in a society where freedom of religion is maintained, I think is the best one. And I say that as a Christian person who wants everybody to come to know Jesus. I still think that that's the best way, because I believe that God is sovereign. I believe that he's in control. Yeah, man, enjoy. Thank you. And so here we'll get into some more like actual theology, okay? Yes, until we meet again, Grim. And if you do want to catch a Grim Grizz live stream, just so you know, it is on YouTube Music now. So if you want it to play in the background, you don't have to keep your phone on, or if you're driving, you're in your commute, you can catch that Grim Grizz live stream. So, and thank you guys for hanging out. I know that these live streams are a little bit late, so I do appreciate you guys being here, and and give me your feedback, because I sort of just I got some ideas, I sort of share them. I don't know like how, and getting feedback is key. So all right, I'm gonna get that out of my way, and then I'm gonna try to refocus. I really thought, okay, I pick up on themes. When I hear something in one podcast, it means one thing. I might note it as an interesting thing, but when I hear it in two podcasts on the same day, that means something else. And it was interesting that Joe Rogan had Andrew Huberman on, and they talked for 3 hours. So this clip is pretty short. It's not really the bulk of their conversation wasn't about this. But then RFK was on Tucker, I think that was today also, and kind of said some similar things. So again, how we view God is going to come into play here. So let's just listen to this clip here.
Science's job is to try and unveil that truth to the best of our abilities. But right, I think nature has a truth. It has an order to it. Science's job is to try and unveil that truth to the best of our abilities. But wrestling, admittedly, everyone agrees it's made up. So at least we agree on that. Right. I think nature has a truth. It has an order to it.
Okay, nature has a truth. Nature has an order to it. Okay, again, are we approaching this from sort of the secular world?
Wise people.
Listen to this. Now, I also thought it was interesting, because I've talked about wrestling before, that Huberman talked about nature and wrestling. Now, he was talking about the WWE or whatever, and it's like, since we know it's fake, it's the most true thing. But I think wrestling is important. I think grappling, you do this sort of philosophically, you grapple with things. And so there's Huberman kind of... And he recently, I think, became a Christian. He's one of these in this podcasting world that maybe wasn't a Christian, and he's either really curious or maybe mostly not working. Pointed this out on Twitter if you follow him. But the nature piece caught my attention. I don't disagree. I mean, I certainly believe that nature communicates truth, right? The heavens declare the glory of God. The stars never cease, talking about God. So there is some truth to that. But then we need to sort of elevate our view to who's the creator of that, and what is nature speaking about our creator? Huberman never really touched on that. And RFK kind of doesn't either. And so we'll kind of break it down. It's a 35-second clip, but there's a few points to it that I thought were kind of interesting.
God talks to human beings through many vectors, through each other, through organized religion, through the great prophets, through the wise people, the great books of those religions, but nowhere with the kind of detail and texture and grace and joy as through creation. And when we destroy nature, we diminish our capacity to sense the divine, to understand who God is and what our own potential is and duties are as human beings. And that...
I hope what you just said, by the way, is chopped up and put all over every social media platform in the world.
Okay, we did it. Yeah.
God talks to human beings through many vectors.
Yeah, God talks to people all these different ways, right? And, again, I think that in a society where freedom of religion is practiced, freedom of speech is practiced, we can all sort of come to the town square and have these conversations. And again, ultimately, like I said, as a Christian person, I believe I have found the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. Now, that being said, I actually came through kind of a New Age experience. I came to Jesus through sort of New Age mysticism and stuff like that. And as much as I sort of broke away from that when I became a Christian, that doesn't mean it didn't inform me. And I think that there's value to that. I think that in some ways, what RFK is saying is correct in that what Huberman was saying is correct, is that truth is found in nature. And so we're all kind of stumbling over bits and pieces of the truth. There's sort of a common grace that people are aware of, and they can sort of pick up on that. But then you really do need to focus the lens and say, okay, well, what is the nature of humanity, let's say, or like what created all this stuff? And that's where, I sort of zoom in and say, it does seem like outside of the person of Christ, nothing else has really explanatory power to not only explain nature, but also like show us how we are going to engage in these social contracts or whatever it might be. Like, what's the thing that's going to hold everything together, both in nature and in our communities? Man, was it Colossians 1? Let me see. This verse has kind of been ringing in my mind. Is it 1:17? Yeah. Okay. For by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones, dominions, or rulers and authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Again, this sovereign, he's sovereign over it all. And even the things that would set themselves up against Christ, I think ultimately end up being used for his plan and his purpose. And so, interesting stuff there. There was what else did he say? Okay, so that's the whole different faiths and stuff like that. And if you're still hanging out, let me know what you think about that. It's not always easy to navigate that kind of conversation online, so feedback is welcome there. Oh, and then nature. What does he say here?
Texture and grace and joy as through creation. The kind of detail and texture and nowhere with the kind of...
Sorry, it's annoying.
Nowhere with the kind of detail and texture and grace and joy as through creation.
Yeah, nowhere has God spoken with the type of detail and texture and grace. That's where I would say, you do have to zoom in a little bit more, because in Christ you have this. What is it? Now I'm trying to wrestle with some Bible verses here. In him dwells the fullness of God's glory. He is the exact representation of God. There's things like that in the person of Christ. And I know that might be just a little bit, I don't know, too far out there for some people, because you're not sort of sitting down, and like Jesus isn't in front of you as like a rabbi or something like that. But I think that's true. I mean, I don't know how to explain what I see ultimately in the church. And that would be my sort of my evidence if anybody needed it. If Trump, and they almost seem like they're doing it accidentally. I don't think Trump set out to say, okay, I need to grab all kinds of like cast-offs, all kinds of misfits and try to bring them together. I think he sort of stumbled upon this. It's kind of the momentum that is carrying him there. And, I mean, I guess whether they are able to pull it off or not will be a test of their whatever they have in common, and you could see this politically working out just even on the scale of a country, right? Are we divided as, are we? That's kind of a silly question. Of course we are, but what's the status of our country right now? Where are we? There seems to, what is strong enough to hold us together? And then I look at the church, and I think about the church 2,000 years ago, suffering through persecution, chaos, trials. Right now think about this for a second. And I guess what I'll probably do is I will record this separately. I have a sermon on Revelation chapter 1, and I think as far as tonight, I had thought that maybe I would try to go through my sermon notes tonight with you all live, but I'm feeling a little gassed, and so I might record it some other time. Revelation chapter 1, it gives us the context here. We know that these churches are going through a time of persecution, sort of general persecution, but also sort of specific persecution, and then it sort of ramps up. And Jesus gives these churches a revelation through his disciple, his John. I kind of take that, right? His bondservant John. And John is meant to carry this to the churches. These churches really, from their vantage point, Rome had won. Rome had won the day. Rome had won, which probably meant the Roman gods were more powerful than this god, this one who is the one who is and who is to come, who is and who was and who is to come. And so this revelation comes in a timely moment where Jesus is saying, guys, you don't have the vantage point of seeing all of history like I do. He encompasses all of history. He knows the church is going to be delivered from this time of persecution. He knows that Rome is eventually going to fall and the church will endure. But the church didn't know that. The church doesn't have infinite wisdom and knowledge, right? And so they need this encouragement. And isn't that just true of us today? Isn't that the same thing? It's like you look out and there's a secular mythology that almost mimics the Roman pantheon of gods. And it certainly seems powerful. It certainly seems almost uniform in its sort of beast-like, even mechanical, maybe even strength and might and power and all that. I don't know. It seems that way. It seems that way, just like Rome probably seemed that way to the first. And actually, some people, there's theories out there that Rome certainly was a part of this, and that's fine. But for our purposes, I guess we can see the power of Christ displayed in his people. He is powerful to fulfill the prophecy, to fulfill his promise. He is the firstborn of the dead. So not only is he's sovereign over all of human history, sovereign over all the nations, he's sovereign over life itself. And he's sovereign over the rulers and the kings of the earth. So he is the King of Kings, right? He's the King to him who loves and is released from our sin by his blood. And he has made us a kingdom of priests to his God. So it's almost like even in the midst of this persecution, he's encouraging the churches that he has the power. Like, hey, guys, remember, I delivered the exiles from Babylon. Babylon's gone. Babylon's gone. But the people of God are still here. I delivered the people from Egypt. Egypt is gone. I mean, sort of, not really. That kingdom is gone. But my people are still here. Remember, don't forget that. I am sovereign over this. And in the midst of that, rather than being scared, rather than being frightened, rather than being overly concerned about this stuff, I know we just talked about it for nearly an hour, but hopefully in the context of like, we're not overly concerned about this, but what we can do is we can act like a kingdom of priests in and amongst a chaotic time. Because there are people who are in darkness and chaos who do not have a vision of Christ that can allow them to endure this present evil age, this present darkness, these forces that are at work. And we get to be, not only are we delivered from this sort of persecution, let's say, we get to be a kingdom of priests in the midst of it. So we're not like crushed by this stuff. In fact, we get to do ministry. We get to bring people near to God. That's cool. That's cool. So that's maybe would be my encouragement to you all tonight, and that's where sort of the political question leads me. I know it took us an hour to get there, but thanks for hanging in with me. What's up, David? What's up, Mostly? Yeah, and again, shout out to Mostly Not Working on that thread with Andrew Huberman. Do you remember? Did he like actually say that he became a Christian? I remember he talked a little bit about sort of his sort of spiritual journey, but I don't remember. And now I'm kind of scared to follow Twitter and do all this. We definitely are peculiar. Yes, a kingdom of priests, and we are sort of the we are maybe the island of misfit toys as well. But again, think about that. Like again, that was my whole point was you see evidence of the fact that Christ is great enough to bring the church together. What is the church if not a whole diverse group of people from every nation, every tribe, every tongue? He brings them all together, and we all have a shared focus, a shared attention towards the worship and enjoyment of this God. That's a powerful thing. That's a powerful thing. And I think that's why John is encouraging. Well, that's why Jesus is giving this revelation to the churches that need to endure that time. But yeah, we can almost laugh about it. Okay, sorry, I was going to get to David's comment here. Yeah, it's even stranger being a Canadian and thinking, God. Yeah. I mean, they're demigods, The AC at the start is so good. Yeah, I'm glad you caught that. Can someone please help me understand the AC thing? Because I'm actually still a little bit lost. Like I know I brought it up. I know I brought it up to Paul during the live stream, and I was trying to get feedback. And then I saw that I saw a comment from McMo that said Pete can't read. But then I was looking for the context of it. I was like, okay, what can't I read? I read that, but then I'm trying to scroll. And truthfully, it is hard. It's hard to read and engage in a live stream at the same time, particularly when you have sort of co-hosts or whatever, and they're trying to talk to you and ask you questions. But yeah, I mean, can you hear it? It's a little bit of white noise in the background. Hopefully that's fine. But yeah, the AC thing, I believe Chad made that. So shout out to Chad. Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's yeah, I like it. But yeah, let me know. So and David, you brought it up. Did you bring it up to Chad? And then it was sort of featured in the Friday Morning Nameless compilation. And then now I've got branding. So I've got the one that Upcycle Club made for me, and I've got this one from Chad. Oh man, I think I lost. I'm sure I have the one from Ups that I could play at the end here, but it's probably way back in my downloads. I need to upload them to OBS so I can have them, and I just haven't done that. So, hope you all are having a fantastic night. If I can find it, I could always play the AC one again, and we could take the AC train out of here. Yeah, maybe we'll do that because I don't think I'll find it. I'll upload them to OBS and then I'll have them. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for hanging out tonight. Hopefully, yeah, again, hopefully we can sort of be encouraged at a time when, man, things are interesting. Things are definitely interesting. I don't know if this is going to play again. I don't think it will. Here we go. Oh, it will play. It will play. Okay. I think I'm going to skip the beginning, though. Nah, I'll just let it play. The beginning is a little bit cringe for me to watch. but I'll endure it with you guys. Thanks for hanging out. And yeah. Catch you in the next one, I guess. Let's see. What do I want? We're kind of setting the foundation for this podcast. Welcome if you're new. The idea of God as Father is pretty common today, but were there giants of the ancient past recorded in the book of Genesis? Are there going to be giants returning in some apocalyptic future recorded in the book of Revelation? Transcendent, up and out. How's it going, everybody? I was given the opportunity to preach a sermon, and ahoy! I'm a little early, so I'm just kind of chilling for a second. Like I was saying, I was all right, man. I'm gonna take a moment. I'm gonna kind of slow down my day. Alrighty. Let's see. I'm gonna double check that we have